Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before, this is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Jack Bishop of GabNet's The Intersect, Tuesdays through Fridays at midnight Eastern Time. It's everything from what's going on with the new royal couple to what's happening with that grumpy old man in the Oval Office. Movies, music, old TV shows, you name it. From thoughtful discussions to out-and-out fights like my grandma would referee between my uncles. So from mild to wild, join me, Jack Bishop, Tuesdays to Fridays at midnight for The Intersection on GabNet Live. It's talk like you never heard it.
You love GabNet. You love the hosts and the citizen panels. In fact, you wish you could take them wherever you go. On your computer, log on to gabnet.net, where our stream is available around the clock. On your TV, GabNet is available on Roku with the same around-the-clock stream, plus all the latest episodes of GabNet programs, old favorites, videos, and tons of celebrity interviews. When you're mobile, we're on your iPhone or iPad with podcasts accessible via iTunes or Stitcher, and that same around-the-clock stream on TuneIn. If you don't want GabNet wherever you go, well, the hell with you. Go ahead, listen to your old-fashioned talk shows that do things in the same old predictable way. Meanwhile, the rest of us will be having fun listening to talk like you've never heard it before on GabNet.
Hi, everybody. This is Alex Bennett, and I've had a long and interesting trip. It's called life. And for years, people have demanded that I write a book about it, and while I've been a writer, my main talent has always been that of a broadcaster. Over a year ago, I decided not to write the book, but using my best skill, I decided to tell it. It's called Life in the Passing Lane, and I described it as an audio biography. It's presented in 30-minute chapters, so it's easy to binge listen. And you can access it on the GabNet page by clicking on Life in the Passing Lane and going to a page with every single episode, plus some extras. If you want to access it on your mobile device, that's easy too. It's on iTunes. It's Life in the Passing Lane, an audio biography by me. I'm Alex Bennett.
Talk Like You've Never Heard It Before is now Talk Like You've Never Seen It Before. Alex Bennett's Ramble is now in video. Log on to Alex's Facebook page at facebook.com/abennett every Tuesday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern and experience the Citizen Panel like never before. We put a face to people like Phil, Patrick, Renee, Kevin, Tony, Jeff, Bree, Brian, and all of our regulars. And Alex is there too, in his PJs. Just be glad he isn't naked. You can be one of those people who gets seen and not just heard by calling into Skype. For more information on how to Skype us, just go to gabnet.net. You can dress any way you want, provided it's decent. GabNet is now not just talk and not just a pretty face. So why don't you add yours? We're GabNet, and we've got you covered live 5 nights a week. First Tuesday through Friday at 9:30 Eastern, it's The Exchange.
Let's capture, who are all these people who are watching these cooking shows? And they're stoners, right? So I'm wondering, is this a program that Netflix has absorbed? I don't know, what is the purpose of Netflix making a 14-minute show? Now, aside from those two interesting facts about this show, the show is fucking terrible. Do not watch this show. It fucking sucks.
Tuesday through Friday at 10 Eastern. Join Alex Bennett on The Ramble.
Say goodbye to the unions.
Renee, what was the decision? And then we'll go to Patrick.
It doesn't matter. Just say goodbye to the unions.
No. But I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you what was in the decision yesterday.
I'm going to look it up.
Okay, let me look it up.
Yeah, he'll go look it up at glennbeck.com.
Tuesday through Friday at midnight, The Intersection.
Most high school boys, what do we got on our mind?
Sex.
Sex and girls and girls and sex and sex and sex.
And booze and drugs.
Yeah, I mean, the Asian guys I knew in high school, I don't, I'm sure they thought that way, but perhaps they were more disciplined about it. Although there was this Japanese girl in high school that your old friend, the Black Avenger, had the hots for. Oh my God. Be still my sake wanting to drink self.
If you like sports, we've got that too with The Arena Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Well, and even if you did that, it doesn't give you the right to grab your Uber driver's private. I mean, and like, what part of that to him sounded like a good idea?
Oh, she played a special song.
Catch up on all the shows with our weekend flashback. All shows have the Citizen Panel, an exclusive concept of GabNet. It's new, it's daring, it's talk like you've never heard it before. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey! Hey everybody, how are you? It's Alex Bennett, and this is of course the Ramble, and the Ramble goes on from now until midnight on the East Coast of the United States of America. Adapt it to your own area and find out what time it is where you are. If it is that time here on the East Coast, then we're live, and you can. Could I do that if we weren't live? No, I couldn't. Anyway, hi, how are you? I don't have a guest, and I don't have much to talk about. Wait a minute, I had. Oh, here it is. Yeah, there they are. Okay, I have some items that I've put in the bin for the last couple of days. I don't have much to talk about, so I don't know. I always say this: I will go to the phones early. I guess I don't know. Who knows? Anyway. I always say that, and then I never go to the phones early. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. Okay, so, first of all, interesting thing I attempted to get for this program. I on my Facebook page, we had a item that was put up by a guy who was over at the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame. And his name, of course, is David Farrell Jackson. And we're going to be interviewing him next week at some point because I want to talk about the Bay Area Radio archives and also just about the history of radio in general. And he's been sending me stuff that, quite frankly, is bringing back a lot of memories. All right? So I want to talk to him, but he put up that picture of Ted Randall. And let me explain Ted Randall for a second. When I was a kid, I think it was when I was like 15 years old. All of a sudden, out of a clear blue sky, this radio station appeared called KOBY, Kobe. And why they call it Kobe, I have no idea. But it had a lot of disc jockeys on it, and they played top 40. They were just 40 songs in rotation, and like a couple of new hits, okay, that were not yet in the top 40. And then they had their pick of the week. That was the big one, the pick of the week. That thing always would wind up in the top 40. Now, this had never been done on radio before. Playing the same 40 songs over and over again. Let me tell you how this all started. It wasn't started by KOBY in San Francisco. It was started by two people. A guy I later went to work for by the name of Gordon McClendon and another guy named Todd Storrs. And they had radio stations, or their family had radio stations. And they'd been in the service together, and they had mustered out of the service, and they were sitting in at least as legend goes, they were sitting in a cafe somewhere. And as they were sitting there talking about various things and what they were going to do with their radio stations and what could they do that was different and whatever, this waitress kept going over to the jukebox and play and put in, like, in those days you put in a quarter, you got 5 songs you could play for a quarter, right? And she put in a quarter, maybe she put in 2 quarters, and she kept playing the same 5 songs over and over and over again. And they were sitting there watching this and going, I wonder why she plays the same 5 songs over and over again. And they assumed it was because she liked these 5 songs. And then they started talking about it, and they started brainstorming, and one thing came to another, and they said, what if we took a radio station and kept playing a very limited playlist over and over and over again? Do you think that could be a hit? And they went, well, our stations aren't doing much of anything now. It never hurts to try. So they came up with this concept. After watching this waitress in this restaurant, this is the legend of the history of this, and I had it corroborated years later when I worked for Gordon McClendon, that they invented Top 40. They came up with the idea that you take 40 songs and you just play them in rotation over and over and over again. The top 20, you play more than you play the bottom 20. And they had a rotation kind of situation. And then they had the potential hits of the future, and then they had their pick of the week. And there were about maybe tops 50 songs they played on the station over and over and over again. Now, anybody you would tell this to in those days would go, what the fuck are you? What are you smoking? I mean, how crazy are you that you want to take this and you want to repeat these songs over and over and over again? And they just thought it sounded like a good idea, so they started these top 40 radio stations. Storrs did it on one of his stations, and McClendon did it on one of his. I think it was KLIF in Dallas. Yeah, he had Cliff in Dallas and Kilt in Houston, where I worked at one time. And they started playing the records over and over and over again. And these stations became a monstrous hit. I mean, they were the top 40 to begin with. Was not, you'd think the top 40 was like, was it rock and roll? And the answer was no. It was the top 40 records. So you could have on the top 40 list Bill Haley and the Comets and Fats Domino and Frank Sinatra. And, Nelson Riddle or something like that. In other words, it was the top 40 selling records. It didn't matter what they were. In fact, in Houston, Texas, many times the top 40 was dominated by country hits. But anyway, they came up with this concept of top 40, and it became a sensation for Todd Storrs and Gordon McClendon. But it had not hit San Francisco yet because they didn't own any stations in San Francisco. And so so this group of people, I don't know who the company was that did this. I can't. That's why I'd like to interview Ted Randall, because these people came in and they started doing this format. Now, I don't know who owned the radio station at the time. I would have to go look it up and do a little bit of research or something like that to find out exactly who owned the station and who had the idea of bringing that into San Francisco. But when I was a kid, all of a sudden I heard about this station. They were going to play the same 40 records over and over and over again. Now, I loved radio, okay? And that seemed like a really stupid idea to me as a kid. But then I listened to it, and I got to love it, and I got addicted to it. And every kid in my high school was listening to KOBY. And one of the guys on this station was Ted Randall. And I don't think he was the program director. I think he was just one of the jocks, but I can't be exactly sure about that. So Ted Randall wound up being a part of my life because when I was trying to get into the business as a whole and trying to really move into the business, I took a meeting at one point with Ted Randall, and we talked about the business and how I could do better in it and go further in it. And he suggested to me that I think he was the one that suggested that I go to KLAD in Klamath Falls, Oregon, that he knew there was an opening there and that I might be perfect for that and be a good place for me to go. And so I went there, and while I was there, he hired me to do imaging for his radio stations. In other words, I would make these little things that go, "You're listening to the top hits on blah, blah, blah," and, with some stinger music and things like that. And then he would send it out to all the stations because he was a program consultant by that time. And so in a way, he was a big influence on me. I mean, he gave me a shove in the right direction. I remember having a talk with him one day, and something that lasted with me a long time. We were talking about music, and I said, well, why don't we play this music or that music, because all my friends like that music. And he said, yeah, your friends may like it, and everybody may like it, but that doesn't mean everybody likes it, because you hang out with people of similar interests to you, and you're not a stupid guy, so you probably hang around with other people who are really intelligent. But the average person is different, and you have to listen to what the average person wants. You can't say, you can't play to your group. And I took that advice. Didn't use it all the time, but it was really good advice. And so I knew Ted Randall kind of peripherally in my life, but he was very important to my career propulsion, as it were. So now he puts this picture up because in my Life in the Passing Lane, I mentioned Ted Randall, and David Farrell puts it up there. David Farrell Jackson puts it up there, and then I said, I looked him up, and I think he's still alive. And then I think David wrote, yes, he is, and then all of a sudden, there's a word from Ted Randall in which he says, he is Alex, that was David Farrell. And then, then he says, thought you might like to know that I'm still alive and doing well, slowing down, but still quite active. And I was just taken back by that, because to begin with, I think he had to be at least 10 years older than me. He may have been a little older than that. He could be in his 90s now. And when I find somebody that I knew that is in his 90s or approaching his 90s and is still alive, I consider that a good day, okay? And so I wrote him back, and I told him, I said, you're a big influence on me, and I said I was using the name Jerry Bennett at the time, and that was it, I used and I wrote him, and he wrote back and he said, well, thank you very much. And then I wrote him, and I thought, it'd be interesting to interview him, because I would love to talk about those days when he was really in on the ground floor of Top 40 and about how it all came to be. And I wrote him, and I said, I'd love to do an interview with you, do this program. And he wrote back, and he said, well, thank you very much. He said, but I haven't done radio in 27 years, and I'm not about ready to start now. And thanks for the invitation, though. And I wrote him back, and I said, well, no harm, no foul. I just wanted you to know that you had a great influence on my life. But I'm kind of depressed because there's so many questions I want to ask this guy. And it's not like he was a huge guy in the radio business. He was one of the early people who called himself a consultant. That was a guy who would, in those days, consult a radio station on how to do a format, would supply them with the records, would supply them with the imaging for the station, and then the station just, did his playlist and everything. And he would supply you with the records, too. He would make sure that you got all the records you needed for your library at that time. So that was, let me just go back to another page here that I got to go to. There we are. So that was, so I would have liked to have interviewed him. I think that would have been a lot of fun. I think you would have found it interesting too. But to find out this guy is still alive, makes me feel better. I'm also feeling better today because I went over to the hospital and saw Jack, my friend Jack Garfine, who was kind of touch and go a couple of nights ago. I mean, his lady friend, Natalia, was just, beside herself. We have never seen her like that. She was really worried she was going to lose him. He had some kind of heart problem, compounded with pneumonia and fluid around the heart and everything, and they put him in the hospital, and they pumped him full of stuff and everything and sucked other stuff out of him. And I went over to see him today, and he was fine. He was getting better, and they said that he's going to be out of intensive care, and they're going to put him in a regular hospital room. So I feel better about that today, because I've been feeling depressed for the last couple of days about it. I keep saying to myself, why did I go get myself a really old friend that I like? Why did I do that? And then if he goes today, I will not have gotten many good years out of him. So. But anyway, he's better, and for those people who know him from this program, he's doing much better. So anyway, I was thinking about maybe I'd like to start interviewing some radio people about their history in radio, and what it entailed. But I don't know where to start. I think I'm going to start trying to do some interviews with people in the radio who aren't in the radio business, but were in the radio business and were pretty much pretty much there. Wait a minute, hold on a second. I'm trying to what? There we go. Okay, no recent conversation. I was just trying to get my Skype ready here, and it looks strange to me. But then again, everything looks strange to me these days. There's something weird. I'm kind of, I forget stuff, and that's getting to bother me. I'm going, will every day a little bit of my life disappear from me? It's like I used to remember every password I had and what it was, and now I don't. But, it could be because every time somebody, decides that your password has been violated, or it's time for you to change your password, you have to change it. And you change it so many times. If you start out and your first password ever is the word Bob, all right? By now, it's Bob 2000 asterisk colon, because every time they say, don't use the one that you'll use last time. Oh, and you can't use that one because you can't use something you used within the last year. And so all of a sudden, I'm having to make lists of all these passwords. And it used to be, I have one password I used. One password. I don't care if you steal my stuff from me. I used one password. And I enjoyed using one password because whenever I went somewhere, I knew that no matter what the name was on the account, the password was that word. And all of a sudden, it's like, can't use that. You have to have a new one, or you forgot the old one, or you signed in too many times, and whatever. And so then you put an asterisk after it, right? And then you go to another. Finally, you've got so many fucking passwords that you don't know what to do. So I'm up to my ass in passwords. And I've got my notes program on the Mac that has all my passwords. And if that ever goes bad, I will have lost them all. Although I'm thinking in the next couple of days of starting just a list of cutting and pasting off those notes, the main ones, so that I have them. Okay, but anyway, it's a pain in the ass. So anyway, I was telling you last night that I with GoDaddy, I had to go to this whole thing where they went, you have to be, now we have to send you over to hosting, and then hosting says I have to go over to my number twos and whatever, and they had to just fix a problem. Well, today I get a thing and it says they fixed my problem, so I went online and I logged in, and then I went to my web stuff on there, and then I wanted to see the statistics. That's where I couldn't get this thing to work, and it says name, and I put my name in. It says password. I put the password in there. It doesn't work. So now I've got to call them again, and I'm on the line again for another half hour with them. And finally, we got it all resolved. But Jesus, it's all over passwords. You know, here's the deal. Let's say Apple, I want to use any password that I want to. And I don't care if it's the one I used last year or last week or 5 minutes ago. I want to use that password. What should that be to you? Why is it so important that I change my password? Oh, and by the way, I can't use the one I used within the last year. So every time I change it, I have to add something to it. And they suggest you do it every month. And it should be a bunch of random numbers and stuff like that. I want it simple, okay? I just don't understand it. Oh, by the way, somebody wrote, Dave Bellecci wrote, after leaving KOBY, Ted went to KEWB. You're right. Ted Randall did go to KEWB. KEWB was the top 40 station that took over the hearts and minds and hearts of the, it was a Kroll Collier station. Kroll Collier being a publishing company. And they had KFWB in Los Angeles, which originally stood for Warner Brothers, and then they started KEWB in San Francisco. And when they went on with KEWB, they had Gary Owens, who went on to Laugh-In, who was one of the people on there. And who was that talk show host, that British talk show host down in L.A.? He was a jock on that station. And you're right, Ted Randall was one of them as well. It says he did 9 a.m. to 12 noon and started a segment called the KEW Beatnik Espresso House. This was in the late summer of 1959. Right. KEWB came in, and KOBY was a has-been. Because they came in, they did it better. To begin with, they had great jingles. They were done by a group in Dallas called Pam's. And they were famous for doing the best jingles in the business. And they paid a fortune to get this great jingle package. And, yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm glad you remembered that, David. Ted Randall went over to KEWB. And KEWB, I don't know what happened to KEWB. After a while, after a couple of years, most of these stations lose their popularity and give way to something else. Somebody else has a better idea of how to do the top 40 format. And there was a guy that came in by the name of Bill Drake. They had a company called Drake Chenault, and they were the, people who set up programming on certain stations, and they even made things more terse, where still KEWB had disc jockeys who told jokes and did skits and things like that. With the Drake format, they just read from liner cards, and that was it. It was all very sparse and very tight. And I never liked the Drake Chenault format, but it was very popular, very popular. Thank you, David Bellecci, for reminding me of that. So anyway, so here we go. Anyway, let's see here. What is this? News flash. Alive and kicking. Yeah. That's what. It turns out. I'll let Phil tell the story. Wait a minute. Let me open up the lines here. I'll let Phil tell the story because. I just got a note here from Mike Allen. And you know the story about Mike Allen. We've been wondering where the fuck he's been for the last 2 months. And we thought, gee, in lieu of knowing anything else, maybe he's dead. And it turns out he's not dead, but I want Phil to tell the story. So I've opened up the lines here so that Phil can call now, and he can tell you the complete story. Anyway, so that's a little story about Top 40 Radio, which Top 40 then went the way of all flesh because then progressive radio came in and they played like rock and roll exclusively, and then other people would play. They had good music stations. Gordon McLennan, who started Top 40, had the first good music station of his was KABL in San Francisco, in the air everywhere over San Francisco. And he played all what my father used to call what do you call it? Pancake music, flapjack music. That's what he called it. That's what my father called it. And he didn't have a great love for it. So, but that was the good music format. And oh look, we don't have Phil first.
Oh, I beat Phil.
You beat Phil. Yeah. The reason I was waiting for Phil is because he has something to tell about Mike Allen. But if he doesn't call really fast, I'm just gonna announce it, and he can go fuck himself. You know. How you doing tonight, Charlie?
I'm doing pretty good. It's cold and rainy here.
Really? Today it was very nice here. We were up in the 50s.
Oh, it's 40 degrees and raining here.
Oh, really?
Arizona.
Oh boy. Well, anyway, so I'm still waiting for Phil to call. But usually Phil's right here, you know. Yeah. But then again, he heard that I was talking for a half hour, and he was probably bored with that and went somewhere else. So. Well, then I'll say what's happening. Mike Allen is alive, but Phil actually talked to him today, and that's why I wanted Phil to talk about it. Now, I'm mad at Mike Allen. Fuck you, Mike, if you're listening. I want to say fuck you, okay? Because while I don't really want you on this program, I do worry about people who are associated with our programs and our regulars. When they suddenly disappear, I worry about them. Like I worried about Renee. So I wrote Renee a note, and she said, I've just been, hiding. I haven't, this time of the year I get a little low and things like that. And, so okay, fine. But I know that she's okay, and she replies to me. But Mike Allen just disappeared off the face of the fucking earth. And
Mike Allen is on the side there on the chat saying he's there. He's alive.
Yep, I know. But it was Phil who he called today and talked to, and that's why I was hoping Phil would call. But where's Phil? Maybe Phil's dead.
It looks like he's still talking to him, is what it looks like.
Oh, really? Why? Where?
It says yes. Call Phil on the phone, and Phil talking to him, and I'm back, or maybe he's not. There's just some talk on there about.
He talked to Phil today. Phil sent me a thing saying that he had talked to him today, so that's why I was waiting for Phil to come on and talk about it. So. And let us know how he is and all that. But I guess
that's good.
Phil,
he'll show up sooner or later. Phil.
Yeah, right. He wants to play hard to get. Yeah. Oh, here comes Rob Alfano. That's hardly Phil, but it's Rob. And hello, Rob.
Hello.
How you doing? Oh, look, he's in his breakfast nook.
I'm in the kitchen. The breakfast nook's behind me. I'm just cooking.
How do you decide where the breakfast nook is? I guess that's where the table is, right?
Well, you decide where it is because they call it a morning room. So that's
they call it a morning room.
It's called a morning room. Yeah.
They have those in funeral parlors, but that's another story altogether.
A little different spelling.
Yeah. I was. Did you hear me talking about Top 40 Radio?
I did not. No, I just tuned in. I heard you talking about Mike Allen.
Yeah. Well, I know. I was talking about Top 40 Radio, and how it started. And when I first heard it in San Francisco when I was a kid, and it was like a sensation. It just took over the business. And then I explained how it came to be because old boss of mine, had created it along with another guy, Todd Storrs and Gordon McClendon. And so I was just told that whole story. So I thought
I missed it. I'll have to listen to the replay.
Yeah, listen to the replay. I think you'll find it interesting. I think you will find it interesting. Hi, Mike. Hope you're feeling better. Oh, that's you, Kevin, typing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear he's okay, but I'm pissed off at him because why for a month and almost 2 months couldn't he get a hold of anybody? Was he being held prisoner?
Maybe he's on those good drugs.
So there are two people I'm mad at now. He and that Jussie guy.
Oh, that idiot.
Yeah, I'm mad at Jussie too.
Yeah, boy, he made it bad for everybody. You know, he made it bad for gay people. He made it bad for black people, and most of all, he made it bad for black and gay people. So, you know, he, as we all know, Jussie, what's his last name again?
Smollett.
Jussie. What kind of a name is Jussie? They couldn't
Maybe
spell
it's
Jesse?
Justin or something? I don't know.
You know, that could be. Could be his name is Justin, and he uses the name Jussie. But anyway, he's in a lot of trouble. You know, he's in a lot of trouble, not so much that he's going to go to jail. I think they'll probably give him, you know,
I think he should get the maximum, whatever they can give him.
They can give him up to 3 years, but usually because he's never had any other crimes he's been accused of or whatever, they might give him just, you know, probation. But he certainly, well, if he did this, let's say, first of all, let's give the presumption of innocence here, okay? But barring that, we all know he did it. He really caused a great amount of problems for the police department in Chicago. A lot of resources were being routed over to that situation, which sucks. You know, it's a horrible, horrible thing. And I agree with you. You know, I think that he should get some kind of penalty that is more than just a slap on the wrist. But anyway, but he was arraigned today, and he went out. This lawyer. What's his name? Starts with a G. He's a big lawyer, and he's always brought in for these kind of things. He's going to be handling the case, and you know, he'll throw enough doubt into the minds of certain people that maybe the penalty won't be as bad as it should be. But, you know, I'm pissed at him, and that's also why I'm pissed at Mike. It's the same thing. He disappeared. And he didn't get a hold of anybody. He didn't get a hold of certainly he doesn't have to get a hold of me, but he certainly, Jack Bishop was really worried about him. And when you know that people are going to worry about you, you usually let them know where you are, you know? So anyway, here I see Phil's coming online now. I think he's deigned to be part of our program.
He told me he would be on tonight.
He told you?
Yeah, we were communicating earlier today.
Yeah, about what?
He's going to do some custom ear molds for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Here comes Phil. Hello, Phil. Why is that still going like that? I brought you on.
I see him.
There.
Yeah, I know. I brought him on, but I don't know why. Who knows? This Skype is running weird lately.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What's the word, Phil?
You mean about Mike Allen?
Yeah, tell him now what happened with you and Mike Allen. I was stalling here because I was waiting for you to call to tell the story, but slowly everybody else has been telling the story.
Oh, well, I got a phone call tonight.
Yeah.
The cops left.
Turn up your mic. Turn up your mic a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
The cops left my phone number. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better.
All right. On his door. And I guess, so he called me and he said, oh, yeah, I was in rehab. And he's got diabetes. And he said that he had an issue with his foot. And I asked him, did they amputate it? And he said no. But, you know, what happens with diabetics, especially if it's out of control, is you get ulcers on your foot. Then eventually you get gangrene and they have to remove it. So he's most likely...
look who you're talking to.
Yeah, right?
Charlie Wallace went through exactly that.
I've had 6 toes amputated.
Yeah. Mike should talk to you, but it's probably too late. But did you have diabetes, Charlie?
Yeah.
He just had his toes cut off for the fun of it. It was
involved with the mafia.
No, it was no. It was a hostile version of a pedicure. Yeah.
Now, do you get like a bottle of Vicodin when they cut off a toe, or do they just tell you to take ibuprofen?
Actually, because I had the neuropathy, so I couldn't feel pain in my toes anyway. So,
well,
last four toes, they didn't even use
I would have left that part out, but
yeah, they pull off my toenails and I don't even feel it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I have neuropathy, and yet I can feel stuff. My neurologist has checked it out and said, no, you're feeling stuff there, but you've got neuropathy. So they're
there's stages of it.
The various forms
are the only ones that feel anything.
Well, there's diabetic neuropathy. That's different from what I've got because I don't have diabetes. So it's just neuropathy because I'm getting older.
Yeah.
Neuropathy is neuropathy though, because mine's supposedly antibiotic toxicity neuropathy.
Oh, really?
Had so many antibiotics that.
Yeah, I got loaded with antibiotics trying to kill that infection in my legs.
Is that becoming sepsis, or is that a sepsis type of thing?
Well, they're trying to kill off the MRSA.
Oh, I see. Oh, wow.
Hey, no MRSA.
Yeah,
the conservatives have no MRSA.
Right.
I have one little itching.
Antibiotic.
One itching sore on my foot, but it's very small, and it's not that. But no, what happened is I don't have diabetes, and he thinks the neuropathy is being caused by a crushed spinal cord.
Oh, yeah.
That can cause neuropathy too.
Yeah. Because you have what is that nerve?
Sciatica or whatever?
Sciatic nerve.
Well, I don't know that. Well, I mean, it could be the sciatic nerve, but it basically it's that there's a pinched nerve in my back, and that's making things numb in my feet. So he gives me gabapentin, and that only makes the bottom of my feet hurt more. I don't understand why, but So anyway,
I had to take that for a while.
Really? Did it work?
Yeah. For a while until I lost all feeling altogether in my feet. Then he took me off.
Yeah, but you tested positive for diabetes, though. So they
15
knew
years ago.
They knew that's what it was. I don't have. I asked my doctor. I said, "Do I have diabetes?" And he looked and he said, "Nah." He said, "Not even."
So, Charlie, did your diabetes get out of control? Why? Why did
it's never been out of control. Once they diagnosed me, I was very religious about my blood sugar, and it wasn't until I'd already been diabetic for 10, 11 years before my toes started going bad.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lack of circulation, and the furthest away from the heart, I guess, is the foot, and that's why you get neuropathy and.
Yeah, but I got those ulcers, and they got infected, and they had to either cut my toe off or they had to cut my whole leg off.
Wow.
Well.
Yeah. Wow. And do people see these ulcers right away, or is this something that you kind of discover after it gets too bad?
Well, I saw mine right away.
What do they look like? Were they big?
They just look like what was that?
Hole in the skin, right?
It looks like a sore, like a blister that burst.
Oh, okay. That's not what I have. I have this thing that itches, and it's like a little, very tiny, almost the size of a head of a pin. But
that's how it starts, right?
No, shut up.
But my first one, I saw the blister right away. It burst the next day, got infected 2 days later, and within 6 days after the first time I saw it, they were cutting my toe off.
Wow.
So it just happened like that fast.
Wow.
It went right into the bone, and they said if we don't cut it off now, it's going to go up your leg and it get to your heart and it can kill you.
Well, this was down around your toes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's up around my ankle. So anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. So anyway, so you talked to him today, and did he say why he didn't call anybody?
he grumbled. I'm not so sure he's that coherent at the moment.
He never was.
Yeah, well, he's worse now. And Tony also wrote me. I guess Mike had written Tony on Facebook Messenger, and about 2 hours before he called me, and at that point, he was Tony let me know that he had gotten a hold of him, but I didn't see that until after I talked to Mike. So I asked him. I said, I said Alex already did a eulogy for you. I mean, we think you're dead. And he says, nah, I was in a rehab, and I was fighting with the people there. And he says that somebody yelled at him for moving their wheelchair or something. And I don't think he's a veteran. I don't think he was in like a veterans home or something, but it didn't sound like he was in a very pleasant place. And so I said, well, why didn't you call anybody? And he grumbled. And I said, we were concerned. And I told him what lengths that we went through to check on him. And, it was
he didn't appreciate that?
I'm not sure that he is in a coherent enough state right now to appreciate it or not.
Well, he must not be listening to us now.
He may still be on medication.
He must not be listening to us now because he's not writing anything.
Well, he has to be on medication the way he sounded. Even Tony said to me that he wrote some message. Let's see what Tony said. I'll give you a Tony quote. And
wait a minute, you're going to Tony for a coherence?
Yeah. He says his post was back to me was hard to read. It was all over the map. He might be on some sort of painkiller. His sentences were a mess. I think he's sick and not doing well. Well, you know what? Tony, have you ever read some of his posts?
Yeah.
I mean, if Mike's sentences were a mess compared to Tony, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I think Mike, it would have been nice that you let somebody know you were okay.
That's what I told him.
Because you're on a show every night, every single night, and all of a sudden one night you're not there any longer, and you don't call for 2 months. Right. Most of the time, that's an indication that somebody's dead.
Right.
And
so he just didn't understand that's a sort of something you do out of courtesy. I said, what did they do? I said, I called your cell number, and I said it was off. Yeah, it was. I don't know what happened to him, and I'm not quite sure. I do know that he's alive and kicking, so maybe he's looking around to see if everybody's all his relatives sold his stuff.
Oh boy. Well, that's that. Hey, listen, Phil.
Yeah,
I got something for you here. Oh, by the way, here is the. This was sent to me by my dear friend who has been putting all this stuff up, David Farrell Jackson. And
I saw cats like that.
He put this up. He sent this to me, and I'm going to have to go to my camera, I think,
I can see
for
it.
this. Well, you can see it, but I want the audience to be able to see it. I don't care about you guys. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, fuck you. See that? Oh, yeah. If I go
ATIM.
Mm-hmm. You see what it says there?
Saturday at Barron's
at
place?
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
4.
Teen time.
Teen time, yeah.
There we go.
And at 4 o'clock it's newspaper. I can't see.
The newspaper of the air. The KTIM newspaper of the air. And they had all those.
Teen time, and then Saturday music.
Yeah. Anyway.
So what was KTIM at that time? Only on a couple days a week?
No, it was on. It was on every day. This was for Saturday, June 11th, wait a minute. 4:05 Teen Time was on. The KTIM newspaper of the air was on at 4. It's only 5 minutes. I guess that was more like a circular of the air.
Well,
You know,
not that much happens in Marin.
yeah. But anyway, oh yeah, we have things like Saturday at Barron's Place, Commuters News, Marin Sports Page, Saturday at Barron's Place, more of that. Polka Time.
Ooh.
Polka Time.
Polka.
The newspaper of the air.
Radio station that does polka.
Huh?
Who hasn't worked at a radio station that had a polka show?
But not a polka show that you were really committed to like this, because it was on for 15 minutes. And then at 8:45,
they're tired. They can't polka that long.
The newspaper of the air at 9 o'clock. This is a 15-minute show that was the Marin Construction News, followed by the KTIM Polka Party for another 15 minutes. Then at 9:30, the Folk Dance Festival, which went for a half hour. Then the mid-morning newspaper of the air, that was 15 minutes. Then more 10:15 Saturday at Barron's Place. This was the way radio was done in those days.
Block programming.
At 12 o'clock, he had Barron, who was Ted Barron, was it Ted? What was it? What was the first name he used? Barron. Oh, what was he? Did he use his first? His real name was Baron von Bukow. Yeah. Then the Marin Sports Page, Saturday at Barron's. He was on all morning long. He was there from sign on at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then the KTIM newspaper of the air, and then at 4:05 Teen Time, and I went for a whole 55 minutes, folks.
Now, I used to listen to KTIM in the 70s,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I did too.
And it was a great station.
It was.
Well, it was by then it was they had gotten an FM signal, and they were they were a progressive station at that point. Yeah. But when I was there, this guy, I had to fight to get rock and roll on for 55 minutes a week. This is a guy who loved Lawrence Welk. What?
They're in
Where were they at that time? Were they at the low end of the AM dial or something?
They were at 1510, and they were their AM signal was a daytimer.
Yeah.
By a daytimer, we had in this particular situation. Let me see here.
Alex, stations at the top of the dial always had a better signal.
Well, no. Here's what happens. At the top of the dial, you needed less power to go further. Okay, right. So if you had 5,000 watts at say 560, and you had 5,000 watts down at 1510. 1510 was a tea kettle compared to the one up at that part of the dial.
Yeah.
So, that's how it worked. And then there were stations that had 50,000 watts, which were clear channel stations, which meant that they couldn't have any other stations on that frequency in the United States, or at least west or east of the Mississippi, because they have what was called a protected signal.
That was like KGO.
Yeah. So we were the opposite of that. We were a daytimer, and the reason we were a daytimer is we had to go off the air so that we wouldn't be interrupting a signal at night, because at night you had a better signal. You had a thing called Skywave. Skywave.
Yeah.
No, the skip is a different thing, but this was Skywave. And so a signal would go further. So you could, if we kept our signal going, we'd bump into somebody else's signal who was allowed to stay on all the time. So that's how they navigated the traffic on the airwaves. And I don't know, are there any daytimers left? Or did they phase them out?
Long Island has one.
Mm-hmm.
WWRL in New York used to have a hell of a signal. Do you still get that? Is that still around? It was.
I worked.
It was a gospel station.
There was a station which was called KJBS, and then it became. I'm trying to remember what they changed the call letters to, but it became a religious station. But I knew I was with the company that owned that station, and they had their transmitter was on Montgomery Street, I think, or not Montgomery Street, maybe. Do you remember you were driving down the street and there'd be a big tower?
The only one I remember is when you're going over the San Mateo Bridge. There was a big tower.
And by the way, the bottom of the tower was a battery station where they sold batteries, and then they also had their studios in there. But anyway, it was called KJBS, and they had to go off at sunset. and then they could come back on at 9 o'clock, but they had to be at very limited power. It was very strange, very strange. So that's the way radio stations worked. And I
used to love Sunday nights. I used to do the Sunday night show, and then every once in a while at midnight, they would do maintenance on the transmitters. And I was working in Central Florida at an AM 10,000 watt daytime, 5,000 watt nighttime, 1060.
Yeah.
And it was fun because I didn't have to follow format after midnight. He just said, just do whatever you want to do. So for a couple of hours, I would just go on and do whatever I wanted to do. And I was doing it at daytime power after midnight. It felt so cool to do. You felt like, wow, I'm really, who knows where I'm going.
Yeah. Well, I used to go to the top of Mount Tamalpais at night when I was first starting in the radio business.
With your radio?
With my radio in the car. And then I would start doing what we call DXing, going across the dial very slowly and seeing what you could pick up. And you were picking up like Denver, and one time I remember picking up Chicago, you know, because these waves would hit the clouds and then come back down. That's the skip. That's the skip.
Yeah.
And you used to get DX cards at the radio station.
You would send them a thing saying, I picked you up, blah, 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 a certain time. And they would send you a card saying, congratulations, you picked us up.
They would say, at 10:52, we heard this commercial or this song. Can you verify it? Yes. And we would send cards out to them.
Now, it's interesting. All these stories we're telling are very good stories, but they don't really apply today. I don't think we have that. We don't have as much of a situation like this anymore.
No, people.
And by the way, all these daytimers and stuff were on AM. FM didn't have the daytime situation. So,
well, I don't know though. Like when I lived in the AM still goes, pretty far in certain cases. So like when I lived in Daytona Beach, Florida, so this is like 2002, 2003. I could drive across like Route 40 in Florida, like in the middle of nowhere, from like Daytona toward like Ocala or something like that. I mean, forest, nothing. And I, because of where I lived up here, I could get 700 WLW in my car, like just as clear as I was driving around in Cincinnati.
Right, but
I mean, this is 1,000 miles away.
But that was at night, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because during the day you couldn't.
Sometimes I could even I could get it pretty clear. Like I could never get it in my apartment on a regular radio, but if you went out and like just turned your car key on and listened on your car radio, where you have a pretty pretty good antenna, you could pick it up in the parking lot. I mean, this is a Daytona Beach, but WLW always advertises though they're supposed to be 50,000 watts, so it's supposed to be one of the most powerful AM stations in the country.
77 WABC in New York was like that. You could pick that up all over the place.
66, 77.
Well, let me tell you what happened up on the West Coast. On the West Coast, the most popular radio station wasn't coming out of San Francisco, wasn't coming out of L.A. It was coming out of Tijuana, Mexico. And that's where Wolfman Jack was working out of. And that's what they were doing in American Graffiti, was listening to this radio station. They didn't know where it was coming from, but it was coming from and what it was, because they were a Mexican radio station, the laws that they had here didn't necessarily apply. And so they had 100,000 watt radio stations. Wow. Not bad, huh?
Baby.
And maybe I think there was one that was 250,000 watts. I mean, it just obliterated the West Coast.
Yeah.
But that's are we talking
anymore? With AM right now is so bad because of all the interference from everything in the air, and there's no more money in AM radio, so they don't spend very much on equipment and maintenance. You could listen to the big 50,000 watts. When I was young, you could hear, like, if I listened to 66 in New York, which is now the Fan, right? And if I'm out where my parents live in Coram in Suffolk County, it's almost you can't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
The quality is really bad everywhere. It's all the interference from all these devices and all of this traffic.
Yeah.
Well, 700 WLW is pretty good because, I live up by Columbus, so, I mean, we're talking 90 miles. Well, as a matter of fact, it's 105 miles from my driveway to like Great American Ballpark, downtown Cincinnati. And but we drive around. People in Columbus drive around, and where I live, and listen to Cincinnati 700 WLW all day. You know, because in your car it comes in great. You know, I mean, when I don't have Sirius satellite radio on, that's usually what I check out, just for the local sports coverage.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. Still, you know, for whatever anybody wants to say about AM radio, it is still the best delivery system for broadcasting that you could possibly imagine. Even more, I mean, more than the internet, much more than the internet. The internet is you rely on one stream for one person. So you got to be sending out thousands of streams for people to be able to pick up this signal, or an ultimate amount. I can take a radio signal, send it out, and as many people who can get that signal and want to listen to it can listen to it without any degradation, without any limitation on the amount of people that can listen to it. It's pretty, you know, to this day, as a delivery system, it's still the best delivery system.
When I listen to an AM station now, in comparison to either streaming or an FM station, it's almost, you can't listen to it. When I was a kid, our cars only had AM radios, and it sounded fine. But it was like, you remember when the Walkman came out, and then everything else.
Well, I mean,
like
the improvement on radio was FM.
Yeah,
FM has a absolutely clean signal. In fact, the problem with it is, I remember when I first heard FM radio, you were just astounded by the clarity of it. And as years went on, they started compressing it and doing all kinds of things. So really, the FM signal you're listening today on most stations is really shitty. It's being compressed like crazy and all kinds of things. Huh?
They try to be the loudest thing on the dial.
Yeah.
You know, like PLJ. When you worked at PLJ, that was one of the most compressed radio stations.
Yeah. WPLJ.
Is that why everybody whispered?
If you stopped talking, you'd hear. I mean, it was just.
By the way, did you hear they sold a WPLJ?
Yeah, it's going to be religious.
It's going to be religious. Yeah, I was one of the first jocks ever at WPLJ.
Yeah.
Scott Shannon was there.
I was there before Scott Shannon.
Oh yeah,
way before Scott Shannon.
Alex, you know, I had a shortwave car stereo. Actually,
that's Bree, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, I have a shortwave car stereo because I used to listen to The Planet. What are they? WBCG, I think, or something. The Planet out of Monticello, Maine. And the other thing is, it's off the ionosphere, not off clouds, and it's still popular in this part of the world. I pick up All India Radio at night on shortwave and on AM as well, and I pick up China. And you have to remember that there are a lot of people in this world that don't have internet still. I mean, Larry Bubbles Brown is one of them.
In the 60s, I had a Grundig radio, and you could get shortwave on that.
Yeah.
I have every radio imaginable. I have radios going back to the 1930s.
Yeah.
The one thing I own that's still in storage is I have an old Cathedral radio, one of those tabletop Cathedral radios. Beautiful.
Is it a tabletop or
a
tabletop?
Tabletop.
G RCA. And well, that's if your forest fires don't get your storage place, Alex.
Well, it's fine. It didn't get it.
You know the story of Passover? Well, Passover passed over his storage place.
Yes.
Or the fire passed over.
Yes, it was really very good.
Did you actually have lamb's blood put on the post of your storage unit?
No.
So that they pass over it?
No, it's just God was on my side, I guess, if there is one.
Okay.
You know. So anyway, let's see here. So Jussie...
there is digital shortwave. China just announced that they're going digital shortwave, DRM1 dial.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Chinese always besting us. So anyway, so we have the Jussie Stoddard story. Stoddard? I keep forgetting what the last. Smollett.
Yeah.
Jussie Smollett. I don't watch that stupid show.
I don't even know.
Too many Negroes and gay guys on that show. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't watch it. It's actually. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but I'll tell you something. He sure fucked up his career.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, do you think
he'll be an MSNBC talk show host?
Well, I mean, I think he could still play himself on Law and Order SVU. I mean, there's always
Dead Man Walking.
probably at least got that left and past that.
The guy made $65K an episode.
Yeah.
He had 18 episodes, I guess, in a season.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean he's on every episode.
No, well, I think he was on 18 episodes.
Yeah.
65K an episode, and he wanted more money.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how this was supposed to help him get it.
Yeah, me either.
I don't understand the correlation between I'm not happy with my salary, so let me fake getting mugged.
Well, he not only faked getting mugged. Here are a couple of things where he fucked up. He wanted them to have a camera view of it. But that day, that camera wasn't facing where they were doing it. Okay? That's
but
for
about
starters.
85 others were.
But more than that, what happened was when they went, the two Nigerians bought the masks and so forth, they took a cab. And they were seen on video in the store buying the rope and then they took a cab and police called the cab company and said, "Where'd you take them?" and they said,
followed them all over the place.
Right.
And then they got private video. They got the Uber video. They got all kinds.
But
of
here is. You want to hear the biggest fuck up of it all? If you're going to do this, and you're going to hire two guys to do it with you, and you're going to offer them $3,500 to do it,
pay with a check.
He paid with a check.
Yeah.
God.
Did the check clear?
I don't know. I hope they
too.
cashed it. Yeah. I mean, that's really the height of stupidity, isn't it?
Make a paper trail.
Huh?
Yeah, but I didn't know who he was before. Now I do.
Yeah,
True.
and about 3 weeks from now, you'll forget who he was. So, you know.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, now
And then,
what
and
they're
then
saying,
1 month from now, he'll run for president.
Yeah.
he actually did us a favor.
Yeah.
He actually did us a favor because now people are saying, maybe we're running to judgment a little too fast and not giving people due process. And
No. They're saying the opposite of that, Phil. This isn't due process. This wasn't a question of due process. Wait a minute. This was for believing the story because you didn't want to sound like a bad person because he was gay and he was black.
no, I understand. Okay, so
this isn't.
It's rushing to judgment.
No, just like you guys do.
Did you hear
just
the
like
account
Trump
today
does.
that the police
That's
read
another
for
one
Russell?
Trump has never apologized to the Central Park Five.
What about?
No, but he's never apologized to the Central Park Five,
So
and he
what?
rushed to judgment on that one.
Well, nobody said that he was, the end all be all when it comes to not rushing to judgment. But everybody is
He
rushing
should
to
be.
judgment.
He's president of the fucking United States, Phil.
Thank God. But
Phil,
everybody.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? He's rushing. Everybody's rushing to judgment. Did you hear the diatribe that was read this afternoon by the police? They went down it and they said at 12:02 he called. They have all of his phone records, so they know who he called. They know what happened. His plane was delayed, so that means he had a call to delay the attack. They said the attack was going to happen at 2 a.m, and they went through this thing like a travel log of exactly what happened.
And one other thing that the police said, and of course they found that out after everybody said, "Oh, how terrible the guy was." Stuff was thrown on him, and it was an attack. But what the police said that struck me a little funny is they said, the city of Chicago has so much crime, and we devoted these resources to this issue. Yeah. But they said if the media, they said, was to spend the same amount of time on the other stuff that's going on in Chicago, that would be more important. But they spent tons of time, media time, on Smollett.
You know why?
Why?
Well, it has to do with news values. And this one falls under the category of social deviance and statistical deviance, by the way, as well. So all of it has to do. There's a bunch of news values, proximity.
Proximity is very important.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg said that a squirrel dying outside your window can be more important than 100 Africans dying across the
somewhere across the world. Yeah, because it has proximity. But the thing is that people have been yelling and screaming about, and I'm the first one to yell and scream. Let's be honest. I was on this show a week ago when this thing first hit and said, I don't know if I believe it. Okay.
Me too.
But I was a little reticent to go all the way with that because, I was hoping that it really was true, but I wasn't hoping it was true because it was a terrible incident. But a lot of people came to his defense and they did tweets saying, "Oh, poor Jussie," and I think
and I think that was a reasonable.
No, wait a minute. Let me finish, Phil. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Our Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, did a tweet on it. And a lot of people are saying, see, now those people, they rushed to judgment on this thing, the fact is they didn't rush to judgment. What they did is they heard a story, and the story affected them. They felt bad by what they heard, okay? So they really weren't wrong in responding to that. They were simply responding to the story as they knew it at the moment. So you can't really hold it against them now because they have a certain amount of sensitivity. But a lot of people were afraid to say, hey, I think this thing's a big fat fucking phony. Because it didn't seem real to me from the get-go. It just it smelled. Didn't pass the smell test over here.
Well, the thing that was throwing me off is that he wouldn't pass over his phone.
That?
Yeah, well, I
that and the noose around his neck. And the
other thing they said was how the hell you're in a freezing, if you've never been in Chicago in the middle of late January, that he's bundled up like nobody's business, and they could figure out that it was this guy, right? They knew that come on, it's just a little bit contrived.
Yeah. So
but this helps Trump.
But I feel sad that I have to say I told you so. On the other hand, I told you so, and so did Kevin. I can understand why the press went lightly on it because you don't want to look bad if it turns out that he really did have this happen to him. So you have to be sympathetic towards the story as you were told it was at the moment. Yes, Rob.
I'm a little bit surprised by Phil's reaction to this, being that you were part of law enforcement at one time. The idea that this guy created all this and wasted all those resources, police resources, that you're not more that's not more of an outrage to you than to me, for example.
It's a crime. I'm not taking it personally. The whole idea is the guy made a false report. It's a crime. They investigated it. They found the crime. It's no different than investigating Cohen for his crimes.
I think what they did is, by a process of elimination, they managed to finally say, hey, nothing happened here. But they had to make sure of that because they didn't want to be the bad guys either if it turned out this guy really was attacked. So the police had to go be very sensitive to that situation as well.
They did their job,
and they did their job. Once they found out the truth,
Yeah, even as a cop, what am I going to do? Get upset when somebody knocks over a 7-Eleven? It happens. It's what they do, and the cops do their job.
But you should be pissed off if you're going around trying to chase a story that's a fake one, while you should be going around and probably solving some other crime somewhere, because God knows there are enough of them in Chicago.
It was a crime, and they did solve it. You know, as a cop, you have to be empathetic and not sympathetic. Otherwise, you become part of the problem.
So Fox, when it first happened, said we stand by Jussie Smollett completely, and then now they're very, very quiet. They're not saying really much of anything. How many days? How many days do you think it's going to be before they say, "Well, we're not hiring him back for next year"? Because the last episode is being shot right now.
They said that they took him out of episodes.
Yeah,
no,
they already did. Yeah.
They didn't take him out. They didn't take him out of episodes. Here's what they did: they cut down his appearance in those episodes. They edited him out of some of the earlier episodes, which have yet to be seen. And then the last episode, he had something like 9 scenes, and they cut it down to 4. But
does he still get the $65K an episode?
Yeah, sure.
All right. He's going to need it for attorneys.
But the question is, do you think he's going to be back next year? Do you think Fox is going to put up with that?
No.
Probably not.
You know, the only value in having him on the show is because everybody wants to see him now on the show. So, you know, I wonder what kind of talk is going on at Fox. Well, we could let him, he could stay on. We can let him stay on by saying, hey, until he's found guilty in a court of law, we can keep him on. We don't want to be judges on this. And then the looky-loo factor will come into play, and it'll help the ratings of what is a failing television show. So
yeah.
And this helps Fox News.
How's it help Fox
not
News?
Fox News, it's Fox Entertainment or something. Right?
Yeah, which isn't even owned by Murdoch anymore.
Who owns it now?
Disney.
Disney.
Yeah.
Well, Disney doesn't go for this shit. You know, I mean.
Well, Disney hasn't taken it over yet. So, but the minute they do, I'm sure he's out the door.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me see here. We had the Oscars this weekend coming up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you thrilled by that?
No, I didn't know, and I didn't care.
Yeah. Hey, you didn't care. Anybody?
The biggest film is one that made $0 at the box office.
Well, because it was on cable. It was on
Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah.
What's interesting.
And by the way, you're wrong. It did make money in the theaters because it was playing in theaters, but it was playing in theaters at the same time it was on Netflix. Because the reason Netflix put it in theaters was that's the only way you could get nominated for an Academy Award. You can't get nominated for an Academy Award by putting it on Netflix.
You know why these shows that didn't have a lot of oomph behind them are getting nominated and possibly winning all the awards? It's because Weinstein is no longer promoting the deals. When Weinstein was promoting all of those movies, his movies got the awards because he put so much into getting people to vote for him. I guess.
Yeah, no, but he knew how to campaign, for an Oscar. But the point is that Netflix had to put that in theaters marginally. Just so, in other words, in order to be nominated for an Academy Award, your film has to open up in a real movie theater at least one day in the previous year. Huh?
Spielberg is totally against that, but
yeah,
fuddy-duddy.
But I think it's amazing that a film that was created by Netflix, a company that only a few years ago was mailing out DVDs, is suddenly going to probably have one of the most honored films of the year.
Didn't somebody in entertainment say that the industry is dead and Netflix beat us? Who was that?
Spielberg.
Was it Spielberg? No, I don't think it was Spielberg. It was.
Well, I don't. I got to say something here. I think the film. I don't know if you've seen Roma or not, but I love the film. I think it's a very good film. But it's
a hard time watching.
But it's because it's not your kind of picture. But it is a
maid picking up shit.
Well, no, it's more than that. It's a slow.
It was slow.
It's a slow remembrance of things past for the filmmaker, and it's not meant to be a picture with a plot. If you ask me what the plot of that film is, I can't really tell you. And that's what's so interesting about it. It defies description. And it is a very special kind of film. And it's a very personal film on the part of Alfonso Cuarón. And I, quite frankly, after I got finished watching it, I went, yeah, okay, I get it. I like it. You know, I like the way it looked. I like the way it felt. And what did it have to say? It didn't have to say much about anything except what life was like when he was growing up.
Would have been easier if they got a smaller car for that garage. You know,
could be. Yeah. But
what's the movie?
Roma.
Roma.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not missing much.
Well, you are missing much, Kevin. I think you might enjoy it. Don't listen. Don't listen to Phil. He's the Michael Snyder of the Citizen Panel. Yeah, what were you going to say, Rob?
That's the thing about the Oscars. They're not a popularity contest. So you know,
it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be, but it is no longer a popularity contest.
Well, you know what's interesting about films now appearing on Netflix, and you wonder why a lot of these people are now putting all their films on Netflix. If Roma had opened up in movie theaters exclusively, probably to the date, it probably might have been seen by 10, 20,000 people. But now, with Netflix, this thing has probably been seen by 50 million people. More people have seen this movie than ever would have seen it in a movie theater.
Yeah.
So it's a good new place. I mean, Alfonso Cuarón, if he had gone to 20th Century Fox and pitched this movie, never would have gotten made. It would have never gotten made by most major motion picture companies because they would not see the commercial value in the picture. Okay? It took a Netflix to allow this film to be made. And whether you liked it or didn't like it, Phil, the fact that it got to be made at all is because of Netflix exists.
Did Netflix actually aid in the making of it, or did they just get it once it was made?
How they aid in
an original?
No, they went to Netflix, and Netflix paid for the making of the film. Oh. You know, maybe they had other partners in it, but it's a Netflix picture. Yes.
But Alex.
Yeah.
What's interesting is Spielberg is making the argument that if we allow this to continue, then this is going to, movie theaters are going to go by the wayside. And if you think about it, it's interesting that aspect of the media, along with going to concerts, are sort of the two things that are, human, they're social, and they're things that internet can't take away.
I disagree with Spielberg because to begin with, the movie theater is gone already. What it's been replaced by is the amusement park. The films that do best in theaters now are the tentpole pictures with that Marvel does and the Disney pictures and so on. That you want to go to a movie theater because you want the shared experience. It's kind of almost a thrill ride.
That's what Bree said.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that's not the fault of Netflix. That's the fault of the business itself, which has become more into the business of amusements. And the thing is that these smaller pictures now have a place. Independent pictures now have a place to be made, and that's Netflix, and that's Amazon, and that's Hulu.
Yeah, but what Bree was talking about is that when you have that social experience in a movie theater and you lose that because it doesn't exist anymore, it goes by the way of the dodo bird or something.
Well, I will tell.
It just separates people even more.
I'll tell Spielberg this: if he wanted to make Schindler's List today, he would have to go to Netflix to get somebody to pay for it. Okay, plain and simple. And by the way, fuck Steven Spielberg. He's the guy that invented the amusement movie.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah.
So his complaining about it is like an old man farting too much.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I still think the movie business is doomed.
Oh,
the theater business is doomed.
Hey, listen, I have a 4K television set now in almost every room of my house. What do I need to go to a movie theater for? You know what is up on that screen? It's a 4K signal. It's a 4K video signal.
I live 2 blocks away from a 16-screen movie theater. I used to go to that movie theater on Sundays religiously. I'd get there at maybe 10 in the morning. I'd watch 4 films. I'd go from thing to screen, and sometimes I didn't get out of there until 10 o'clock at night, or even later. And now with the 65-inch TV in the living room, I don't go.
Well, and the point is right here at my home, I have a 4-screen multiplex. Yeah. Okay, I could put somebody in every room watching different movies in 4K, the same quality you're getting in the movie theater, and
Yeah, Rob was saying.
I have 125 inches. I have a 125-inch screen downstairs with surround sound projector. This is a projector. There's no difference in the experience.
Is the projector
popcorn's cheaper?
Is the projector capable of 3D? Because the only things
it is capable of 3D. I don't have 3D because I've never, I don't have any titles, but it is capable of 3D.
It is capable of 3D. Because they're not making 3D TV sets anymore. But they are.
All the projectors are.
But all the projectors are 3D. So I may have to get a projector eventually because I love 3D.
Well, you know what they're doing in San Jose now? They're having some kind of down in San Jose. There's some sort of experience going on now. You go in and there's a 3D experience where they got. Have you heard about that, Phil?
No. I don't care for 3D movies.
No, it's like God, I can't remember. They just opened it up about a month ago at Oak Ridge, and it's something to do with you get 6 or 8 people into the theater, and you watch the movie, and it sprays shit on you, and it's almost like it's almost like the ride, and you 3D.
We call it 4DX here. It's called 4DX.
Experience.
Is it?
It probably costs you $30
it sprays stuff on you? Is it a porn film?
Yeah, probably. I'll check it out and find out what it is. But
I don't know.
It's supposed to take the movie, to the next level or whatever.
I don't know.
It's a Silicon Valley thing.
If what's happening with 3D movies is that I tried monovision, for instance, where you wear one contact in one eye and a long distance in the other eye and short. And my brain was never able to really adapt to it, and it would give me headaches, and I wasn't comfortable. I'm just wondering if 3D is also doing that to me, and that's why I don't enjoy a 3D movie.
3D. There used to be a great deal of eye strain with 3D. In the early 50s films. But what they've done lately is they actually adjust this so your eyes don't have to strain at all. In fact, most of the 3D movies aren't 3D at all. They are converted into 3D, which pisses me off because I love real 3D movies. I collect all the old ones, even the bad ones. So I can watch them here.
Yeah, if I go to the theater and they've got the same movie in two theaters and one of them's 3D and the other
I'm always going for the 3D. Always going for the 3D.
Well, at least I won't have to sit next to you.
Even though the 3D is not really 3D. It wasn't shot in 3D. But if you ever go back to those old films, and you can, I have some here like Kiss Me Kate and House of Wax and a film called Sangaree, and I have a bunch of really old ones. They were shot stereoscopically. They were shot with 2 cameras. They were shot, in depth. And they're pretty good. They really 3D.
There are still cameras that are stereo.
Oh, yeah. The stereo realist camera.
Do you still get the movie passes for screeners? We used to take me to those screeners.
I get invites to them, but I don't go.
Yeah.
It's too much trouble. It's just too much trouble, and plus the fact that I just figure whatever's out today in 3 months is going to be available somehow,
Yeah.
And so why should I? So, and now we actually see Dubai, or what passes for Dubai, which is Bree's apartment.
Bree's laundry.
Bree's laundry room. Yeah.
Yeah, my battery was running low, so I had to come here and charge it. But I'm on a different Wi-Fi now, so I don't know if it'll.
You know,
work.
Bree, Alex's friend Walter Sabo does his show from a laundry room, so you're probably in good company.
Yeah. So let me ask you, and I would ask Josh Wheeler this because he's our legal expert. Stone today, Roger Stone, was told by the judge to shut the fuck up. That he can't talk about the case or anything like that. I think
what he gag order.
Well, he can raise funds for it and make statements in those funds. You know that he needs the help and blah blah blah, but that otherwise he can't talk about it. Shouldn't that be his decision to make rather than a judge's?
And if he's talking about it while he's raising funds, isn't that the same?
Well, no. That we're talking about he's still allowed to do it for that purpose, but to talk about it in that context, but not to discuss the merits of the case otherwise. But my question is, I mean, he's the guy who's going to be on trial, and if he says things which are going to prejudice a jury against him or whatever. Doesn't he have the right to do that if he wants to?
Well, I mean, obviously not. I mean, gag orders have been in place for, quite some time. I mean, constitutional rights are not always limitless. I mean, every law school in America has that conversation, right out of the gate. I mean, I think the point is that, in high-profile cases like that, I mean, if he tries to raise money through sending out a letter or something like that, it's more of a targeted audience.
Wait a minute, what are you doing? You're kind of throwing us off here, Bree. What are you putting that up for? Huh?
You're muted also.
Yeah, you're muted also, so we can't hear you. Anyway, let's get back to Josh.
Burj Khalifa, and it's 8:30 in the morning here.
Okay. Yeah, but did you see what the date is? Here, it's the 21st. On your phone, it's the 22nd.
Yeah, so your phone's wrong. Anyway, let's get back to this, Josh. What I'm saying is that, yes, I understand why a judge would say, do not discuss the case in public. That part I understand. I don't think she was as mad about that as she was about the fact that he had a picture of her next to a Target and had his photograph taken there.
Now, you say that was a Target. It looked to me like it was a demonic symbol, and something Anton LaVey would have.
Yeah, Bree.
How about the press reporting where AOC lives, right at the time when there was a guy found with multiple weapons, and she was on the target list.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Coast Guard officer who.
The funny thing is, they said that this guy amassed a great amount of weapons and ammo. I have 1,000 rounds of ammo, and I have almost just about 15 guns. So I'm wondering, does that make you a terrorist? Yeah.
Can I ask just a simple, silly little question? What do you need with 15 fucking guns?
You just accumulate them over a 30-year period, 40 years period. You accumulate them.
This is not lint that winds up in your crack of your ass. You don't just collect them.
That's him? Oh, that's El Chapo.
That's El Chapo. He needs 15 guns. That's the guy that needs 15 guns.
When I was on the force, I had 2 of everything, because if you got into a shooting, you wanted one to replace that, and you wanted the same kind of operating system.
So you need 2 of them, or maybe even need 3 of them in case 2 of them break. All right, but 15, Phil.
There's different amounts of concealability. I have guns that are a couple of inches. I have ones for my ankle. I have ones for the hip. I have several different kinds. And when I was on duty, I carried 3 guns, and actually 4 with my shotgun. So, there was a mission for it. Now, I'll never sell them.
Yeah, well, we're getting off the topic of what we were talking about.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes. Oh, knock,
Mr.
knock.
Meyer? Open the door, please.
Yeah.
You just do it the way we do.
Yeah.
Knock and announce, and then knock the door down.
Yeah. I just my only problem, Josh, is that at what point does he have the freedom to speak and not the freedom to speak? Now, if I think what she doesn't want is for the case to be prejudiced so they can seat a jury, all right? So that if you're discussing it in the press, you have a harder time seating a jury. But then again, she's not saying to MSNBC, who is reporting Roger Stone as the most evil human being on the face of the planet, that they should stop because that would influence a jury. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line. I mean, it's difficult to stop the press as a whole, but it's not very difficult to stop an individual, I suppose. I mean, an individual or, a very small organization, such as an individual and his, 2, 3 lawyers and the prosecution. So, what we talking, 6, 8, 10 people or whatever, who would be worthy enough for the press to interview. You can stop them pretty easily, but you can't stop the press as a whole. But in a way, you can slow the press down with that because you take away some of the principal people that they may be able to have on to kind of, from both sides, to kind of shoot their mouth off about it or whatever. I mean, I think all the judge is really trying to do is just prohibit some kind of quasi, jury tampering, which, is what you were saying is,
right.
Prejudice a jury pool. But I mean, these things have been done before.
But doesn't the press do that in advance? I mean, Fox does it and probably saying nice things about Roger Stone, and MSNBC is playing him out to be the villain. Isn't that the kind of thing the judge should yell out about too? But then again, they would be yelling, you're trying to hamper the press. So where does he get? Does he have to be accused of something and then remain absolutely silent, in the absence of his not making a comment seem even more guilty?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he has to.
And by the way, I'm no great fan of Roger Stone, although I think he's a hoot. But
sure. I think he was winning hearts and minds when he was doing what he was doing.
I don't think he was winning any hearts and minds.
That's probably why they.
I don't think he was winning any. He wasn't winning any hearts and minds. Roger Stone winning hearts and minds? Are you kidding me?
Well, people kept saying, "Hey, you had SWAT teams, you had all of this stuff at 6 o'clock in the morning. You've been investigating the guy for 2 years. Here you had scuba."
The reason the SWAT team went out, the reason they were out like that and made it a surprise, was they felt if they told him they were coming, he might destroy evidence.
If he hadn't destroyed it by now, it ain't getting destroyed.
You don't know that exactly.
You remember he was saying that he had the SWAT teams, they scared his dog, they scared his wife, but they were very nice. They were very courteous. All in the same fucking sentence. Yeah. Just like Trump.
Yeah. But I mean, let me put it this way. I find Roger Stone fascinating, okay, as opposed to Donald Trump, who I just find to be a turd.
And he's one. He's going to get off.
To be about the same level, and that's why I was surprised the judge didn't stick a stick right up his ass and shut him up today.
Charlie?
Yeah, I watched that movie. Get
Roger Stone. Yeah.
And I did not find him fascinating at all. In fact, I found him atrocious. He is a horrible human being.
Well, no. Here's what I found fascinating about him. He has absolutely no respect for what would be considered nice. He just is so unapologetically bad. What? You keep holding these things up, and they don't make sense to what we're talking about.
Because I don't know. All the political stuff that you talk about, I get bored of it after a while because I believe Trump will just pardon this person. And the fact is that they've done such a good job cloudying and muddying everything. I can't keep track. I really can't keep track of what's real and what is not. And then the Jussie Smollett case and all this, it's just all garbage.
Well,
I don't think it has any relevance.
Part of your, and you have the right to that opinion because you're not exactly here. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't. If you don't want it to affect you, it doesn't have to affect you. If we don't want it to affect us, well, it's going to affect us anyway.
No, I don't agree with that. Even though he's
that's
not
exactly
here,
what they're trying to do.
even though he's not here, he gets the same TV shows over the internet that we do.
If he goes to the internet, but in general, he's still. Whenever I go to Europe, for instance. Yeah. I hear, and I was staying in Spain for a while. I heard everything that was going on back home, but it was back home, and I got all the information. In those days, I was getting a day later, so it had already happened.
Yeah. Well, how many years ago was that?
But all I'm saying is that if I were living in Europe right now, yes, I would care what was going on over here, but not in the same way that I'm caring about it being here. And I think Bree would agree with me on that one, right, Bree?
Yeah.
And that's probably part of the reason for you being bored by it, because you're so removed from it that you can't do anything about it.
Well, and here's the other thing. I've already come to my conclusion about it. I believe that, and here it is in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing. First of all, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Washington is just screwed up. It's like you can't do anything there without 25 people saying this is wrong, that's wrong, we got to do this, we got to have an investigator, we got to spend more money, Trump had a business and he was a celebrity. He went around and he had dealings with a lot of people. Yeah. And his company still runs and his kids run it. Mm-hmm. Did he have interactions with Russia? Sure. During his business days, I'm sure he tried to get money. They've said as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
did he sit down in a room with Russian people and say, here's exactly how we're going to run the U.S. for the next 4 years? No, it didn't go like that. But yet we just go over and over again and did he do this? Stop with it.
We're living back in the days. We're living back in the days where everybody was saying, "Hey, what about the emollients? What about Trump and maybe we can overthrow him if we don't certify him in the electoral college."
Here's what.
Okay, so what? Okay, so what are you holding up?
The story.
Yeah.
So what happens is we miss stories that actually mean something, or stories that are revolutionary. This story says that the Chinese twins that had their genes altered says that they've enhanced their ability to learn and form memories because they have enhanced cognition and memory as a result of the gene editing. That's huge.
The gene editing is a system called CRISPR, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had my genes altered, and they just let them out an inch.
But forgive me.
Wait a minute. Josh.
No, I'm just saying, you're going to have to forgive me here because I'm going to be a dick. But you're sitting there saying, that Trump did he sit in a room and tell the Russians this is how we're going to run the United States for the next 4 years? No, it didn't go that way. But I'm sorry. First of all, you don't know that. Second of all, a lot of people do want to know that. Third, a lot of people on this network and in this country want to know that and want to talk about that. And second, if you think that for 15 seconds, I'm going to care more or spend more time of my day caring about or talking about two fucking Chinese babies who had their brains altered more than I am the operations and daily actions of my government, then you're sadly mistaken. And you can call and talk about anything you want, that's fine. But you interject in the middle of a fucking conversation and then act like we're supposed to. I mean, I don't know where to go with that. But
I think the Democrats had their brains altered in 2016.
Don't laugh at him, Rob. It only encourages him.
I agree with what you're saying. I understand that story has relevance, but we have a crisis going on in this country. But we have a crisis going on.
Yeah, but you know, it was said
we don't know if our president is an agent of a foreign government.
That you weren't going to
hold on, Phil. He's making Phil. Don't go apoplectic. He's just making a statement. This goes back to something, Bree, that somebody said earlier about that if a squirrel dies outside your window, that's more important to you than some kid who's dying in the Mideast somewhere because it has proximity. And proximity is very important to the news that we want at that moment. The kind of things we're talking about here, they couldn't care less about in China. Okay? Right?
You see,
but maybe that CRISPR story is big in China. So
the thing is that all politicians are influenced by a lot of different things. Okay, here's a good question. Why did Kamala Harris get a first town hall for a Democratic candidate? Why did she get that? Why did they give that to her?
Because they yelled out the window and she was the first person to yell back, probably.
Take a look at Kamala Harris's campaign contributions for the last 10 years. I wonder, Warner Media, gee, do they own CNN? Yes. She got that because of that. They're one of her main
but the same. But wait a minute. The people in the last 10 years that owned CNN were not the people that own it right now. Okay.
Yeah, but
what do you mean?
So they're not the same people who own it right now. Who bought it, Rob? Was it
AT&T?
AT&T bought it. Yeah.
They've also contributed. It's like
did they contribute to Kamala Harris? I have no idea that they did.
Yes. And here's the difference. We used to have, you would know this, in 1948.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you this question. How many other people did they also contribute to? Because a lot of times these companies contribute to everybody, so that they get
not to Elizabeth Warren.
Well, would you?
All I'm saying is,
there is such a thing as called as throwing good money after bad.
Casinos are going to contribute.
Huh?
The Indian casinos, if they're going to contribute to Elizabeth Warren, they
listen. They hate Phil. They hate her more than you do.
Yeah, well, they can get one of theirs in the White House.
Didn't CNN give Warren whatever you call it, too, just like Harris?
All right, so I do apologize. You're right. I did change it. You have to understand, I'm just waking up here, so then I turn on my stuff and I get this news and information, and my brain just starts working. And I don't know, when you talk about Roger Stone, it's just I'm sorry. I apologize. You're right.
No,
editing human beings. No,
you know something. There's no right.
Not that
but there's no right or wrong in
you in the States.
There's no right or wrong in this. I mean, you're sitting in Dubai, and so what we're seeing here is really what happens in the world and your perception of what is important depending upon where you are. Okay, so you have nothing to feel bad about, but on the other hand, you have 6 other people, myself included, who are ensconced in this because it's happening to us day by day, and our personal lives are going to be affected by it. I mean, for instance, you're paid by who? Who is your employer?
Kamala Harris.
No. Who's your employer? Is it? I'm not in particular, but is it a foreign entity outside the United States who writes your check? Okay.
Yes.
So and you pay taxes to what? Dubai?
I don't pay taxes.
Why?
We don't have taxes here.
Oh.
Taxes is a
Excuse me, folks.
Idea.
I'm going to move to Dubai tomorrow and completely divorce myself from the rest of the world.
Are you affected at all because you're an American? Do you have to pay anything there, or do you have to pay Social Security or anything like that? Like you're an independent contractor.
It's complicated. I still, the way it works is if you're an American, you live abroad. There are only 2 countries in the world that still tax their citizens if they live abroad. Guess which 2 countries?
Yeah,
U.S.
Yeah.
And Eritrea.
Never heard of it.
Eritrea. It's an African country.
Yeah.
The only 2 in the world. So I still am obligated to pay U.S. taxes. The good thing is I don't make enough money. Because I'm a teacher, I don't make enough money to have to pay those taxes. You have to make over $100,000 in order to pay.
Do you file? Do you have to file a tax
return? Yes, I do have to file.
But under $100,000, you're not required to pay American taxes.
That's right.
And you're not taxed by Dubai. Dubai has no personal income tax.
No personal income tax. Nope.
That's
it's
what
an
you get.
Archaic idea.
Oh, it's a wonderful idea because they're so fucking rich, that country. They don't need your money.
Yeah, well, that's complicated as well. The state, the emirate where I live in, is not as wealthy as others.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just have different ways of funding things. So, for example, it's really hard to explain, and I don't know that you guys want to know, but it's when I come back to the States and I see that, my families they pay taxes, but the roads are crumbling next to them. Then I come here, and we have perfect roads. And it's just it's a way that you fund it, and the way and who you ask to fund it and how you fund it. So, for example, around here, the school is responsible for the roads immediately around its environment. So if there's litter bugs or if there's some infrastructure that goes, they will take care of that. So it's kind of like a neighborhood business and government cooperation. So that's not up for the individuals to pay taxes for that, because we'll buy the things from businesses and spend our money that way. So the businesses want to keep the roads clear and nice so that people will come to their business.
So that's like McDonald's picking up around their trash around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, that's a public.
Like Domino's filling potholes.
Yeah. Well, all I know is I have a screensaver on Apple TV of several shots of Dubai, and it's an amazing city. It is just an amazing city. And
is it a city or a country?
It's a country, I think.
It's a city.
It's a city? What is the Emirates, though? The Emirates is the country?
That's right.
And what is it called? Dubai?
United Arab Emirates.
Oh,
UAE.
Okay. So you're part of the UAE, but
That's right.
You're the
Dubai is one of the Emirates.
Okay, and it's the city. The whole city is Dubai.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
the city and the state.
It's
It's kind
also
of like,
didn't you
it's like Washington D.C.
Didn't you build those islands also in order for people to live on those islands? The ones
those haven't been going so well.
The
They
re-
have
the map of the world.
Do they have a military in the UAE, or do they have a budget for military? Are they spending anything on military?
Oh yeah, the UAE is one of the largest purchasers of U.S. Military goods. Probably after Saudi Arabia, it's probably the second highest.
And most of the income comes from what? Oil?
Oil.
In our emirate, it comes from tourism. Tourism and transportation and cargo. So Dubai is different. Abu Dhabi makes money from oil.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dubai makes money from financial,
like Switzerland.
dealings. Yeah. And Singapore. And Dubai is very much like Singapore.
How hot does it get there?
In the summer, we can get up to I think 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
How do you go out in that?
It's a dry heat. So
I mean, I've heard that, but it's still 130 degrees.
We get that in Arizona.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, you just plan it's like when I lived in Singapore too, you get hot and sticky. You just plan the way that you go about your life. You just plan things.
What I loved about San Francisco, I used to refer to it as the world's only air-conditioned city. There was certain...
Singapore's like that.
Yeah. Oh, Singapore. Oh, Singapore. No, Singapore is...
Singapore is like an air-conditioned city. You never have to... When I was there, I walked all around the city and you're never really outside.
No. But this is outside. It's air conditioned. I mean, San Francisco always has a certain cool.
It's got
an
average temperature of like 65.
Even if you have a 90-degree day, nighttime is 50. So anyway,
it's rare to have a 90-degree day.
Boy, but that kind of heat would drive me crazy.
I
love it.
Oh, really? You like it?
I like the heat too.
Yeah.
I like the tropics.
Do you ever, when you're at home, you're baking something and you open up the oven and you get that
blast?
That blast. That's what it's like in the summer here when you go outside. It's like you feel that blast, and then you're in it.
But can you go from one place to another and pretty much be air conditioned all the way? I mean, I'm sure you get in a car and it's air conditioned, but then you go into a garage. Is the garage air conditioned?
Some are.
Oh.
Some are.
Yeah.
It just depends. And the other thing is that the air conditioning is so cold some days that I literally feel like a popsicle. So when I go outside in the 130, I actually am like I'm thawing out, and it takes about 10 minutes to thaw out. Well, by 10 minutes I can be at the metro, or I can be at the tram, or I can be at the store.
Yeah.
So.
I lived in Miami when I was going to college, and my glasses would fog. You get out of the car, it's air conditioned in the car, and you have to walk from the parking lot to wherever you're going that's air conditioned.
Well,
but my glasses would fog.
Yeah, well, when I lived in Houston,
that doesn't happen here.
When I lived in Houston, Texas, that city is so humid most of the year that I used to joke about the fact that I was never able to keep a crease in my pants. Because I mean, it was just you could almost swim in it, right, Charles? You know the Houston humidity.
I lived a year in Houston.
Yeah. You like swim in the humidity. And that was the first time I ever had an air conditioner in a car, because you didn't have a car without an air conditioner in that city. And they were the kind that they just put in under the dashboard. Yeah.
I thought you used to have cars with cranks in the front.
That was before I had the car with air conditioning, Phil.
Hey, Rob and I have been talking, and he was telling me that he had itchy ears, and I sent him what I sent you.
Yeah.
And you don't use it, the ear gene.
I haven't used it yet. I still have it here. I haven't had a reason
Rob,
to use
you got a testimonial for the ear gene?
I'm telling you, I am able to wear my hearing aids again. I stopped. I have $6,000 worth of hearing aids that sat for 2 years.
I didn't know you wear hearing aids.
Oh yeah, I from all my
didn't
years.
know that, Rob.
From my years in television, from getting blasted, from all my years working in nightclubs and radio with headphones too loud, I wear hearing aids, and I had to stop wearing them because I'm wearing them right now. It's funny. I even forgot I have them in. This stuff, I used it by the third day. I put in my, there's no more itch. I used to go crazy. I'd be driving and I'd be pulling it in and going like this, and it would be driving me crazy.
Yeah, Alex was doing that too. I sent him some of the same shit, but he leaves it on his desk.
It's somewhere here. I don't know.
I bought it. I actually bought another bottle because God forbid I can't find it. I love it that much.
And now a word from ear,
Rob, you're going to be like Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I don't. It's not the.
You remember when Peter? You remember when
drugs?
Remember when Peter Townsend of the Who lost his hearing, and they were thinking of changing the name of the group from the Who to the what?
That guy York from the Monkees died today, right?
Peter Tork.
Yeah.
Peter Tork.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was only 77 years old or
77.
something. Yeah.
A youngster.
Yeah.
He had like cancer of the tongue or something, didn't he?
Yeah, it was something bizarre. Wow.
I don't know.
That's sort of like human papillomavirus kind of thing.
Is he the one whose mother invented whiteout?
Yes. No, that's Michael Nesmith's mother invented whiteout. He is the heir to the whiteout fortune, which nobody uses anymore, but when they were using it, she made a fortune. She made a fortune.
That's called Blanco.
Hey, listen, we've kind of run out of time here. The theme is playing. And it's been great having you here, Kevin. Nice having you here this evening. Rob, as always, a pleasure. Phil, good to have you back. You were a good boy tonight. Charles Wallace, always a good guy. Okay, Josh Wheeler. When we want a ruling on anything, we go to Josh. He's the citizen panel judge. And, of course, Bree, we always love hearing from you from Dubai.
Thank you for the forum, Alex.
Huh?
Thank you for creating the forum.
Thank you for being part of it. And why don't all of you wave a big goodbye to those people out there, and I'll wave back at you, okay? There we go. There goes the citizen panel for tonight. They're all finished. They're all going to get tucked in their beds. But wait a minute. They got to go over and do something. Yes, they should be there with the intersection with Jack Bishop, which is next over most of this same GabNet. Tomorrow night, there's still no Damian Chaplin. He's still got equipment problems. Hopefully, he's going to be up and running sometime soon. In the meantime, it's time for me to... This hat looks weird, doesn't it? It's from Hong Kong. We'll be back again tomorrow night. 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Same station in life. In the meantime, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye.